who is speaking. When finally received the call after noticing 21 missed call from an unknown number. Am I talking to Miss Lee Wan, the daughter of Mr. Lee, CEO of the Lee Industries Private Limited? A beautiful, elegant voice, probably of a middle aged woman, came from the other side of the phone. She checked the number flashing on her phone screen for another time as she wasn't allowed to take calls from any random unknown numbers. First, she hesitated a little. Am I talking to Miss Lee Wan? Ma'am, it's really urgent. It's about your father's blood test report. Speaking, she politely answered. This morning, your father gave a blood sample to our clinic for testing, and I am the pathologist. I have collected your phone number from your father's assistant, and I'm talking to you because I thought it's important to inform you that your father has and in the last stage. That sudden phone call made her feel like if the ground under her feet was removed. Ma'am, I wasn't the one who drew Mr. Lee's blood sample, but coincidentally, I was present there in that room, so I heard the conversation between Mr. Lee and his assistant. Listening to their conversation, it seems that he is a doctor himself and knows what happened to him. It's just a paper report formality for him. I tried to analyze his body language, and it seemed that he has already given up about his health related issues and probably not willing to accept any treatment. Lee Wan, the girl from the other side of the phone, tried to understand how the unexpected phone call stormed her life. She hummed in response a few times and the phone call was disconnected. She remembered a few years ago when she casually called her beloved dad to wish Father's Day and was informed by his assistant that he had a cardiac arrest. She was frozen at her position. Within a few moments, she noticed incoming call from a familiar number flashing on her mobile phone screen. 여보세요. She politely answered the call as the phone call was from her father's assistant. When Mr. Lee wants you to take over his business. Hearing his voice, it was obvious that he was anxious. What do you want, Sanjan? When asked calmly. When, if you are asking my personal opinion, then I would suggest you to come back to Korea immediately. The middle-aged man's voice trembled. How is he? When asked. Samsung is aware of his sufferings. His voice cracked this time. Can you arrange my tickets, please? When uttered. The middle-aged man hummed in response. Oh, I remember. Today I met a girl in the hospital, probably she and you were in the same high school. We had exchanged a few words and I have given her your contact details. I almost forgot to forward you her contact details. I apologize. Wen stayed quiet until she heard the beep sound of disconnecting the phone call. Lee Wan, the only daughter of Mr. Lee, had been working hard to fulfill her and her father's dream. She wanted to be a medical professional, but because of the huge empire Mr. Lee had created, Wen started taking online business classes. She was trying her best to prove herself the best, and for the first time, she felt responsible. She was ready to give up her dreams to fulfill her daughter duties. For the first time ever, she mentally prepared herself to compromise. The next day, at Lee Industries Private Limited, Mr. Lee was all set to enjoy his morning tea when the glass door of the cabin was opened. Wen was standing at the door. Mr. Lee glanced at her. You look tired, especially the dark circles around your brown eyes. And what about you, Dad? Do you think you are looking like a typical Asian business tycoon in his 30s or 40s? When almost whimpered. No, Mr. Lee shook his head in denial. I feel like I'm old enough. I want to retire, but I'm not joking, Dad. Wen looked at him fiercely. I always wanted you to handle my business when you were growing up, but I never forced you. I also know that you study business online and you are very conscious of your studies. I have never forced you to handle my business or resisted you from what you are doing. But today, I have a request for you. I know I don't have much time left. I want to see you married. This is the only request I make to you. Take it as my last request to you. One could see his trembling eyes. To whom, Dad? One calmly asked. Now don't say that I have to marry the first person who opens your door and comes to your cabin. I don't mind if he is single. Mr. Lee playfully shrugged his shoulders. It goes without saying that the father and daughter created a storm in the cabin. Neither the old man was ready to give up, nor his daughter was ready to let him win. Meanwhile, Kim Tae-hyung, the idol of the idols and also 49% shareholder of the Industries Private Limited, entered into the CEO's cabin. No, he didn't enter without knocking. He was in a hurry, and due to the ongoing father-daughter storm inside the cabin, Mr. Lee didn't notice him, but he felt relieved at Tae-hyung's unexpected appearance. At that moment, as a daughter, one was so desperate to convince Mr. Lee for treatment that she was still unbothered by his existence in the cabin. Mr. Lee, nice to meet you. They greeted the old man. What happened? You look tensed? Mr. Lee replied immediately. I need some cash immediately. They answered. Okay, she is a Lee Wan. Go with her, do the paperwork, and Miss Lee Wan, please make a phone call and inform to start the treatment as soon as possible. Mr. Lee stated. What happened? When asked her dad while glancing at the male figure standing right behind her. Unfortunately, his baby sister met with an accident. The old man sighed. They flinched as he didn't expect the old man to be aware of the situation of his private life. Miss Van informed the hospital to start the treatment procedure of the young pathologist. Mr. Lee uttered as Van was on the phone call. Though Van nodded, she felt a trail of shivers running down her spine as she heard the term pathologist. Sir, Van spoke in a calm tone. Can you please come with me to the office of the finance department? She finally noticed his facial features. The handsome man looked familiar. The man nodded and got up from his position and bowed the middle-aged man before leaving. The papers are ready. Just sign under the tick marks. One handed him a bunch of paper printouts. I refused to give up my shares. They frowned as he went through the documents. Then, in which circumstance I can lend you the huge amount of cash? When asked him, you are not related to the Lee family. I bought the 49% of shares of this company as a gift for my baby sister. I can't give up this, they repeated. Is there any other way? Are you married? When asked directly. No, they almost got choked. Why? Then marry me. This way you will become relative to the Lee family and when paused. And holding her hand, they asked her, do you know who I am? If I'm not wrong, you were Kim Tae-hyung, the idol? Gwen didn't hesitate to answer him. Why do you want to marry me? They asked her directly. Because I'm the daughter of Mr. Lee, or you can address him as Dr. Lee with third stage blood cancer. That old man was arguing with me. Being a doctor himself, he was aware of his health condition and refused to get treated. And after almost storm sized arguments, he agreed to their treatment. He stipulated that I should get married as soon as possible, and if possible, the man who would enter first into his cabin is the one I should marry. Her answer was just to the point. They noticed the hint of struggle in her attitude. She was at her worst, hitting her bottom just like him. There was no hint of love or greed or dominance in her attitude. I know you are an idol. Probably it would have solid impact on your career and fandom. So I would request you to act like we are a normal couple just in front of my dad, in our home. Nothing more or less than that. One drops of tears was rolling down her cheeks while she kept weeping. They noticed that. What if I refuse to sign on these papers? I just used my resources so that there would be no delay in the treatment of that baby girl. I personally hate wasting time, Mr. Sorry. I'm not sure if the name I know for you is the right one or not. Wen took the papers and put those papers in an envelope. Thank you. I would never forget this favor of yours. I am eternally grateful to you. I will ask my company if I am allowed to marry you. He bowed before leaving the finance department. Can I have your contact details? I have nowhere to escape as I have promised myself to be with my father at his sword. If you have a yes answer in mind, then you simply can contact the office and I will contact you. And if not, I don't think I should have any means of communications with you. But being a medical student, I can say that this marriage will be for a maximum of 6 months. After that, you will be freed. Wen lowered her head. Go to the hospital. You should be there. Wen came outside of the office to see off him. They calmly noticed her body language. Her attitude was just professional. She wasn't there to see off him or the idol of the idols, Kim Tae Young, and it kind of hurt his ego. Even after securing himself in the back seat of the car, his eyes were still fixed on her. In the afternoon, Wen quickly completed her work and left the office as she felt it was her responsibility to visit Tae's sister in the hospital. Wen was about to enter into the hospital when she remembered about her father's blood report. She stopped before entering into the hospital and dialed the number. Yebuseo. A male voice answered the call in a sweet husky tone. Wen assumed the voice from the other side of the phone was probably of her boyfriend's. She paused for a moment in hesitation. Actually, it's quite an emergency situation, so I need to meet Miss Kim. I'm standing in front of the place where she works. Emergency? The man frowned. Yeah, and I desperately need to meet her. Wen insisted. Third floor, room number B3. If you were an employed person, then please mention your designation and name of your office at the reception. It will be helpful. They thought the woman might be someone his baby sister was scheduled to meet. They actually forgot that he had told someone to come into the cabin as he was very tired, like his brain almost stopped functioning. About 5 minutes later, Wen softly knocked on the door. May I come in? She whispered in an audible range. They opened his eyes and turned around and saw that girl. He was startled, confused, and trying to figure out how she was familiar with his baby sister. One also startled seeing the person whose phone number she just had saved freshly was lying lifeless in a hospital bed. She is sleeping. They whispered while patting on the only couch he was sitting. Can I see the reports? One asked him. My would be bride, are you a doctor? They raised his eyebrows. Oh, she sighed and handed him her phone. Dial your phone number, hubby. Being unprepared, they looked at her eyes. It was still emotionless for him, but concerned about his baby sister, and he could clearly distinguish. He felt like salt of negligence was spread over the wounds, yet some kind of uncertain satisfaction he felt seeing her concerned about his baby sister. What are these? They uttered as one had sent him a few pictures before he could save her number, but as he was in the process of doing that, the digits seemed familiar and he recognized her number. For your kind information, I am a registered doctor. If I ask you her situation, you will probably fail to explain everything in my frequency, so send me her reports, please. One looked at his eyes. Oh, you look tired, she added. So, are you going to stay here? They yawned while sending her the reports. She casually checked her wristwatch. If you wanna go for a nap, probably I can stay here for some time. Why? They asked. The way I shamelessly asked you to be my husband, it's the least help I could do for you. And I have to collect a few documents, so it's a win win situation, she said bluntly, and her sharp words almost pierced his heart. Glenn sat on a chair to provide him the couch for a nap. By the time it was nearly 9 o'clock in the night, they had opened his eyes many times, and each time Gwen told him that she would stay a little longer. Mr. Kim, she tried to wake him up. Hmm? They hummed in response. What do you think? We should make the contract for how long? 6 months? When asked, please don't say no. When pleaded, Kim Tae-hyun, the idol of the idols, had always dreamt of getting married to the person with whom he would at least share a mutual emotional understanding, but in reality, it was completely opposite of what he planned. He looked at the girl. Looking straight at her eyes, he found no hint of emotion but full of responsibility, sadness, and hint of pleading was in her gaze. They nodded in agreement. You sit first. Wen gently held his shoulders and helped him to be seated. Have it. She handed him a glass of water. Taehang was thirsty, so he gulped down the glass of water without any questions or query. So, Mr. Kim, the advocate is preparing the papers for our contract marriage. He was asking for the time duration. When explained him the situation, hmm, you want me to go to the marriage registration office tomorrow? They asked in his husky voice. His voice sounded to her sweet like honey. She gulped down an amount of saliva to discontinue those irrelevant thoughts. No, it won't be safer that way, she uttered. I will send you the documents. It's safer for you to sign the documents first, then I will. She was only conscious about the pros and cons. You know, even when I sing a song or dance,
Most of the things are obviously technical, but do you know what the key feature is? It's emotion. They finally spoke about the matter. I will try my best to be careful about your routine. If you allow, I will try to do the course all by myself. When replied and grabbed her leather handbag. Thank you for your time today. I was really exhausted. They thanked her. Don't disturb her and please don't forget to check before giving her the medicines. One's advice made him flinch. What happened to her? They asked her. Isn't it visible, Mr. Kim? Accident? One felt bad for speaking bitter just before stepping out of the hospital room. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have spoken in that tone. She bowed 90 degrees. Bye. Take care of yourself and your baby sister. They was in conflict. She was good, honest, brave, careful, responsible. She was too sharp and probably not in the state to fall in love. In spite of all this, the way she came to meet his sister without knowing that she was his sister, and the way she almost insisted him to take rest, it actually impressed him. The next day, when forced herself to leave the bed. Out of habit, she was checking her mails and messages while brushing the teeth. After going through a few messages, she came across a message that said, "What color will you wear today? Would be wifey." And for the first time, she realized she was playing with fire. She typed, "How is your baby sister? I have requested my father's assistant to reach you personally for the signature." They immediately replied, "What's about the photograph?" One typed, "I'm trying to figure out how can we achieve that to be done authentically without harming your career." The next moment, when received a photo where his baby sister was having her breakfast in a hospital gown. They, "She wants to meet my wife." When, "You have told her?" They, "I didn't want to, but don't worry. She doesn't know who I'm getting married to." When, "It's okay as long as you feel safe." They, "Can I call you?" When thought he must have something to ask her, so she touched the call icon on the phone screen. When,